This is a training session on the report of non-university activities. My name is Jacqueline Jansis. I'm the Director for Conflict of Interest at UIC. I'll take you through a process step by step, but first I want to point you to some resources that are available on our website. So when you go to the Vice Chancellor for Research page, there's a section on conflict of commitment and interest, and under that page you will find the report of non-university activities. There's a section here that explains what the deadlines for the process are and the review process, and also we have resources for employees. There's a very useful short video for employees on how to use Start My Disclosures and the step-by-step instructions. We have also other training sessions and FAQs on the report of non-university activities, as well as examples of activities that should and should not be reported. And I would say that we receive many questions about, what activities do I need to report? So I would recommend going into this section and reviewing the activities that should be reported and those that don't necessarily need to be reported. We also get a lot of questions about how to calculate time. We've created this time calculator, which is available to help you assess how much time you need to report for engaging in your activities. And so you just simply plug in your appointment and the number of months, and then the outside appointment, and then the hours per week, and then it would give you a figure that you would report into your RNUA. And if you are wondering, what's my appointment here at the University of Illinois, I would refer you to go into HR, the NESI application, and obtain a copy of your notice of appointment. So there's also guidelines for new employees, but since this is the start of a new year, if you're a new employee, you're just falling into the process with everyone else for completing your disclosure for the academic year. If you're an administrator, there's also resources available for administrators, and some of our training sessions are focused on the administrators and the review process. If you have questions about form retention, we have some guidance here as well. RNUA used to be a paper process, and now it's no longer paper. It's a electronic disclosure process, and so for the past 20 years you may have been retaining records, and if you're a department manager, you can remove some of those records by working with RIMS and completing the appropriate documentation to remove some of those records from your files. So at this point, I would like to go into our Start My Disclosure application. You can launch it from our website. This will take you into the real Start My Disclosure site. For the sake of this training, I'm using a demonstration site. And so I'm logging in, and I have some resources that are not available, like assuming a UIN and being able to represent someone else in the process. So as I go through the process, I'll just make sure it's clear who I am in the process and walk you through that. So at this point, I am going to actually change to someone else's personality. So I'm logging in right now as someone who's a new employee, and what you'll see is, as a new employee, you'll see this home screen, and so you need to go in and initially determine your requirements. And these are 4 screening questions for us to assess what types of disclosure you're required to submit. And so what you would do is identify yourself as academic staff, or if you're retired but still receiving compensation from the university, you could identify that. Other individuals who are a civil service, academic hourly, or not affiliated with the University of Illinois, don't have paid appointments such as that, they would indicate that, and then they would not be required to complete the RNUA. Then the rest of the questions are more specific to research and your role as a researcher, if you are a researcher or an investigator in research. And so if you were not involved in research, or if these are not applicable to you, then just answer no to those questions. So for the sake of this training, I am answering no to these other questions, but I want you to see that this is the home screen, and you can see that on the right-hand side we have the information, and if you drop this arrow down, you can see the additional information that's been provided by you, and this indicates that you're academic staff, but you don't identify with these other items that we selected with screening. If you identified with those other items, they would lead you to either sponsor-specific disclosure or telling you to submit some kind of nepotism disclosure. But for the sake of this, we are just doing the report of non-university activities. If you needed to change this, you could always click on Update My Information and then change your response to those questions. So on this screen, you can see that you have the RNUA option, and you can start your RNUA. I also want to point out on this screen that there are additional resources. You can view past disclosures, so if you had submitted a past RNUA and you had that reviewed last year through this online process, you can view your past disclosures. You can also see the information about who is your administrators in your department for this process. And so there's contact information for those individuals, and there's contact information for the COI office as well. So I'm going to go into start a new disclosure. And because I'm new, this is the initial screen that I'm going to see, which is the guidelines about the report of non-university activities. And so what we've done here is we've created some simple guidelines to explain to you what you need to disclose and give you an overview of the obligations. So if you expand these, you can review the guidelines for each of these. There's also the option to click on some of these active links, and then there's also some hover over features that explain to you like what is an entity, what is a fiduciary, and those are some helpful tools for you in reviewing the process. So it's recommended that you read through the guidelines and understand what the reporting obligations are, the time periods for reporting, and then also understand that if you're a physician, who we are trying to identify here as a physician, and so you can correctly identify yourself. As you go through this, the initial part is to answer these two screening questions, is if you have something to disclose and if you're a physician. Now, in this simple demonstration, I want to show you, no, I have nothing to disclose. Are you a physician? And I'm going to say no in this case. And I'm going to hit save and continue. And what you will see is the review and certify page. Now you can go back to the page you were just at and change your responses if you think you have something to disclose. But if you have nothing to disclose, you're simply going to select no to that question, and then you're going to be provided with the certification. You need to check the box to indicate that you affirm, and then submit your disclosure. So the disclosure gets submitted, and the application lets you know that your disclosure was routed for review. And in this case, with the application, the review process, because you didn't disclose anything, it's going to route directly to a completed folder. So I'm going to log in as the administrator for the unit. And you can see when I go in for the unit, I can see there's nothing for me to review, but the disclosure did move here to the completed folder. So you can see it was submitted, and the administrator can view what you've submitted, and also if the administrator needs to add some kind of statement, the administrator has the function here now to add an attachment to explain this. So that your administrator, even if they're not doing the process of saying, you know, this is okay, they are still required to look at your disclosures and make sure that you don't have anything to disclose. And what they need to do is, if the administrator determines that there's something outside, some non-university activities that you need to report, then they should contact you and let you know that there's something that you need to report, and the administrator can document that by adding an attachment here to your disclosure, so it can be recorded that the administrator directed you to report your non-university activities. All right, so I'm going to leave this section, and I'm going to go in and do a disclosure, and I'm actually representing myself, and I'm going to go ahead and start a disclosure for the new year. Now you can see that this that I am in here, and I have previously done disclosures. So I've done past disclosures. I can view my past disclosures. I've also done sponsor-specific disclosures, and I can view those as well, and I can edit and change those. But what we're going to focus on today is submitting a new RNUA for this new academic year. So when I come back into the system after having done it in the last academic year, the application is actually going to tell me that I had these past activities, and I need to report my retrospective time. So this is a state law that requires that we report our retrospective time. And so what we need to do here is to fill in these tables on the right to indicate what the retrospective time was for this activity. So I hit save and continue. And when I come back into the application, and this is the same screen that you saw before, with the guidelines and the information about what you need to disclose. Now, because I have activities, I'm going to click yes. I'm still clicking no. When I come back into this screen now, rather than just taking me to the main screen where I would report my activities, the application is going to ask you if you want to select your activities from your past reporting cycle. So I can either select all, or I can select one by one and bring those activities forward, or I can remove an activity. It's really my choice. So in this case, I'm going to bring two things forward, and you can see those things show up now in your list of non-university activities. But when they show up in this table, they show up as not complete. So you don't have an option down here to submit your disclosure. You have to finish completing these disclosures. So what you need to do is click on the edit option, and then click through. All of your information is still there, and then update anything as you need to, but you will need to go in and report your prospective time. So the prospective time is how much time you expect to spend during this contract period. And once again, there's a hover over if you need some information about what that means. And we also have the dates here from August 16th of this academic year to August 15th of the next academic period, or the current academic period. So this is 2017. So we're looking at August 16, 2016 to August 15, 2017. So I'm putting in the number of days here. So let's say I'm going to put 28 days. Let's save and continue. And then I need to go through and then update any additional information. You can see that as you go through, if you've triggered a significance threshold, you're going to be asked additional questions. So right now I'm providing information about myself and my spouse, and what the responsibilities are. And so if I needed to add an additional family member, say I had my mother is involved in this, and the title is secretary at the company, and she serves an advisory role. And then you can add the family member. So you just simply use these tools to add this and change your disclosure as you need to. Click save and continue. The next section is about your university responsibilities. In this case, I've indicated it doesn't overlap, but we also added a new section this year to indicate, let's see it. So the one thing that we did with this section is that we did change the section so that if you're saying that this is like the sponsor of your research, or subrecipient, or the entity's products or services are going to be used, instead of providing that information in your RNUA, you're going to be asked to complete the SFI disclosure at the end of your RNUA. So what you'll see is that'll change with this. I'm going to click Save and Continue, and then involvement of other university persons. I have someone listed here, say this is my spouse, and I have his activities listed here. I can add other persons, and you're going to add the person's name and then their department, and you could say they're internal, external, depending on what their role is and involvement with the project that's going on with the company, and then indicate maybe they're a student. Are you the student's advisor? No. Who's the student's advisor? And then, does this person have a reporting line to you? Does the person have a familial relationship? And then go ahead and add that person. You'll see they'll be in this list, and you can edit or delete this as you need to. You click Save and Continue, and then you'll go on into the section for intellectual property. Again, the section expands and works just like the others, and if there's intellectual property related to this company, then you would disclose that here. So I'm clicking Save and Continue, and then use of university resources. Again, if there's other resources such as space or equipment, or other resources, that supplies that you might be using from the university, the idea would be to capture that information here and to explain how those resources are being managed. So you can see that this has changed from no to yes because I've completed this disclosure and I've added my prospective days. And then this disclosure here, you can see I didn't reach a significance thresholds, so it's a shorter questionnaire. So I'm going to hit Save and Continue, and I need to add my prospective time. Now let's say I'm going to say 10 days of prospective time. And then nothing has changed, and I'm just going to say, okay, nothing's changed, but I need to put this information in here. And if it wasn't previously provided, then you'll need to add this information about what your role is with this entity. So if you're a consultant, or you teach, or you conduct research, or you have fiduciary responsibilities, it's also possible that you have no role with the entity and that you're reporting it because a family member has a fiduciary role or ownership interest in the entity, and the entity is doing business and has some kind of contractual relationship with the University of Illinois, such as being a vendor or supporting the research or being a subrecipient of research. So in this case, I am going to just say this is off campus, and I hit Save and Continue. And you can see I didn't go through as many questions because I didn't trigger the significance threshold, but I still had to provide that additional information about what my role is with the entity. If I needed to add a new activity, I have the functionality here, so I can click on the positive sign and add a new activity. You'll go through the same steps as before, and then if I need to go back into my list of previously disclosed activities, I can go back here and I can bring that one activity forward that wasn't previously there, but again, as a reminder, that it shows up as not complete, and so I need to go into this section and finish it, and I need to add my information and provide that information until everything is complete. Once my list is all complete, then I can move on to continuing to the certification page. So before you go into certification, you get the option to add attachments or upload a file and or write in your comments. And this is optional. It's really there to give some flexibility to the system, to provide a place for you as the discloser to submit something additional if you weren't able to explain it adequately. in the disclosure. So this is optional and you don't have to add it, but anything you add into the system is viewable by your administrators. So I'm going to click certify and submit. And so as I go through this, I'm affirming, but then I've also triggered some of the university's thresholds, so it's reminding me that I have to abide by the terms and conditions in order to manage any potential conflicts of interest. So I can click on this and it'll take me over to the resources that explain what the terms and conditions of the RNUA are. So I can click here and then hit my submit disclosure. If I needed to revise my information, I can always go back and revise, but in this case I'm going to go back and I'm just going to submit this disclosure. So the application is letting me know that my RNUA is submitted. If I return to my home screen, I can see that my RNUA is in a submitted status. I'm going to switch to the administrator. Okay, so now I'm logging in as the person who's doing the review for my disclosure. So I'm representing the person that I report to. And so I click on Manage My Units, and you can see that there are 3 RNUAs ready to review. What we had to do, because we have multiple years, we have this drop down, so we are looking at 2017. We can also go back and look at 2016. But for the sake of this process, we're going to look at the 2017. And we're going to go into the folder that has my disclosure that's ready for review. So you can see that there are disclosures that are not submitted, and these are people that still need to do RNUA disclosures, and you know, your department would be following up with them to submit their disclosures. Alternatively, if you knew someone was on some kind of leave or some reason like out of the country, those certain exemptions for doing the RNUA, you can create exemptions for those individuals. And then once the individual returns back to campus and is back to resuming their responsibilities with the university, then they would be required to do the RNUA at that time. So I'm going to go into the folder right now for the RNUA that needs to be reviewed, which was my RNUA. And you can see that this gives the executive officer a summary of the time that you've requested and the time that you've spent on external activities. It also lists the number of activities, and it includes like a workflow information here, so I can see if this is going to be forwarded to anyone else for review. And so this may be helpful for later in the process or for somebody who has secondary appointments, so I can see where things are moving in the process. So I am clicking on the review that has to be done, and what I can see is everything that was disclosed. These drop down, and you can see all the information related to the disclosure, and so the administrator will review these and then make an assessment of whether or not these disclosures either are approved because there isn't a conflict of interest, or the disclosure doesn't require reporting, or if they need to be forwarded for further review because there's potential conflict and it needs to be managed and there needs to be further review. Or if the disclosure needs to be returned to the submitter for revisions, and you would the reviewer would provide an explanation of what needs to be revised. So as the reviewer goes through this process, they'll select these options. If something gets returned, the whole disclosure returns back to the person who submitted the disclosure. And they have to go through and make those corrections, and then bring it, maybe to a status where there's a mutually agreeable situation, or you remove the activity because you're not allowed to engage in the activity. But that is the process with returning for revisions. Something that gets forwarded up is going to go up to the next level of review, and so that means whoever is the administrator, and usually that's the dean or it could be the vice chancellor level, that person needs to review the management plan that's being put together by the department and make sure that that's adequate to manage the conflict of interest. And then approve just, simply means it's going to move forward. So in this case, I can show you something where we'll forward it for further review. But these I'm going to indicate seem to be okay. Okay, so I'm going to continue. And I have to, as the administrator, I would have to use either this space or the attachment section, which was in the previous page, to provide my explanation of why this activity represents conflict and explain how the conflict will be managed. So I could go back, if I needed to this section and add an attachment. Say I like to have a very formal letter or something. So I could put that document here, and then that would show up to me, and it would be available to the employee as well. But in this case, I'm just going to put a comment in here, department. Okay, so I'm putting in here my explanation of how the conflict will be reviewed and managed. And so I'm going to route this for further review. When I do that, it then goes up to the next level administrator. And what I can see here is that this is being reviewed at the next level for the administration. So the person who's doing the review process can get kind of an assessment of where everything is at the process. And this is also another a feature that we added this year, which gives us kind of a bigger picture of the disclosure process. And so you can see all the disclosures that were submitted. I submitted several test disclosures, and then those that weren't, but it gives you kind of a bigger picture of everyone in your department and where things are at a certain time. So at this point, I'm going to exit this user, and I'm going to go in as the second level administrator. And so as this administrator, I would go in and I have something ready for me to do a review on, and you can see that my RNUA has forwarded up to this administrator who is a second level reviewer. And what that person will do is they can see from this workflow here that my RNUA was completed previously at the Vice Chancellor for Research, and if there's any future work stops, I would see that as well. So at this point, what the administrator for the second level needs to do is either approve that the management plan is sufficient to manage the conflict and that the conflict will be monitored by the department, or return it back to the first level of review and provide an explanation and request for revisions to that management and monitoring plan. So in this case, I could return it or approve it, and so I'm going to, for the sake of this review, I'm going to approve this. But just as the first level could do, you can see all of the information available, and you can review any comments and open up attachments when those are available there. So, so at this point, the administrator would approve the activity, can add a comment as well. So these drop down, and you can say approve management plan, and then click confirm. And so again, that moves over into the completed folder, and that shows up as approved. And if I exit this user, I go back into my personal side, what I will see is that my RNUA was approved. And I can then go in and view my approved disclosure. I can download a PDF copy of it. I can see who did the approvals and when did they do the approvals. I also have a disclosure ID, and that might be helpful if there's a tracking issue that we need to locate something. And then I can see the information that I've requested. I can open all of this and review it and know what I have been approved to engage in that activity. So, in a nutshell, this is how you would go about the disclosure process. This is the start, and then through the review, and then if you have questions during this time, again, I refer you to the website where the RNUA resources are available, and you can get access to the FAQs. The FAQs provide like 45 questions about what is the RNUA and who needs to do it, and what types of activities need to be reported. So there's a number of questions in there that we've already previously answered, and then other resources such as the time calculator may help you assess how much time you need to report on your RNUA. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to the COI office. Our contact information is here. You can also look us up. We're in the directory, but we're also here in this directory. So I'm Jacqueline Jancis. I'm the Director for Conflict of Interest, and Scott McEwen is our coordinator. And Scott is really great at answering questions, so feel free to reach out to either of us or to contact us at our listserv, coi@uic.edu, and that will reach both of us, and you may get a quicker response. So with that, I appreciate your time and attention, and that ends our webinar.